I have a headache now. I have a headache because of this. Hello, my fam. It is Perez, the queen of all media, the original influencer, and your number one source for everything It Ends With Us saga. As you know by now, Ball Ache Lively's publicist, Leslie Sloan, is no longer a party to his lawsuit, because his lawsuit got tossed in the trash by Judge Lyman. Baldoni chose not to file a second amended complaint and is strictly now on the defense, defending himself against her accusations and her lawsuit. And since Bleak Brown's publicist is no longer a party to the lawsuit, she is seeking attorney's fees from Baldoni and the Wayfarer parties. I shared that with you previously, as well as Team Baldoni Wayfarer's response, which seemed very logical. And the judge does not like logical. Lying Lyman has not ruled yet, but minutes ago, Leslie Sloan filed additional paperwork making her case why she should be entitled to attorney's fees for well over $1 million. And they're so wrong. Don't listen to them, Judge. No. Listen to me. Slithering Sloan argues the Wayfarer party's baseless claims of defamation were filed solely to inflame the public and censor Miss Sloan, chill her protected First Amendment speech, and inflict significant emotional, reputational, and professional damage to her and her company. Isn't reputational and professional damage the same thing? I guess they're just, being dramatic. Their letter continues. Their lawsuit is therefore a textbook example of a strategic lawsuit against public participation, SLAP, against a New York citizen for conduct taking place in New York that New York's anti-SLAP statute is meant to address. The Wayfarer party's opposition brief offers nothing that would suggest that they had a good faith basis for filing this devastating lawsuit against the Sloan parties. After months of vaguely referencing receipts they had, but never showed or described, and bragging to the press that they had Miss Sloan dead in the water, their July 7th filing points to no documents or testimony that demonstrate they ever had a substantial basis in law or fact for the claims and defamatory accusations they publicly leveled against her. Remember, this brouhaha has mostly to do with that Daily Mail reporter who allegedly got fired from the Daily Mail recently, and the comments about sexual harassment versus sexual assault, and none of the cast liking him, and today's letter continues. The Wayfarer party's opposition to her request for attorney's fees hides behind procedural arguments in an attempt to escape the consequences of their misconduct. Each is unavailing and should be rejected. They argue the court should award the Sloan party's attorney's fees and costs pursuant to New York's anti-SLAP statute. They believe that the anti-SLAP law applies here, and that the Wayfarer parties tried to argue that California law should apply here, but she makes the case for why New York law should be applied instead. Why? Well, for many reasons, but I'm not going to bore you with the minutia. Most importantly, the publicist's lawyers argue that Miss Sloan's alleged statements all emanated from New York. The activities to which the allegedly defamatory statements refer took place in New York, and New York has a stronger interest in protecting the First Amendment rights of its citizens. Plus, New York is where the trial is happening. Okay, I could buy this. Another very important point that Sloan wants to make is that she may pursue fees by motion, which is what she did. In the Wayfarer party's response to the judge, remember, where they were against her seeking attorney's fees, they argued that Leslie could only get attorney's fees if she made a claim or file a new lawsuit. However, she argues that the Sloan parties may pursue fees by motion, which is what she did. They say if the judge agrees and if the judge applies New York law, nothing in the anti-SLAPP statute's text precludes awarding fees by motion rather than a pleaded claim. And then they cite the New York case law. To the contrary, the anti-SLAPP statute provides that a fee applicant may maintain an action claim, cross-claim, or counterclaim to recover attorney's fees and costs. They also argue that the anti-SLAPP statute's fee-shifting provision applies in federal court, but then they are presuming once again that this is given the judge agreeing that New York law should apply here. He hasn't done that yet. This is very interesting, actually. I'm so glad I'm reading this. The Wayfarer parties never had a good faith basis for their allegation that Miss Sloan accused Baldoni of sexual assault. No media outlet, including the Daily Mail, ever reported that Miss Lively was sexually assaulted. You see this right here? This is an article from the Daily Mail. The headline says, Justin Baldoni claims Blake Lively is using her celebrity status to get an edge at deposition. It was published July 13th, 2025. And look what it says here. Justin Baldoni is pushing back against Blake Lively's request to be deposed in her lawyer's office ahead of their upcoming sexual assault trial. You see this? Sexual assault trial. Sexual assault. Seems like the reputational damage he has suffered is real. They're still calling it sexual assault. Anyways, Leslie's lawyers plead with the judge that the court should award her attorney's fees and costs pursuant to its inherent powers. Because the Wayfarer party's conduct was egregious, a frivolous claim. They failed to conduct a good faith investigation into the allegations in their complaint. The Wayfarer parties deliberately misread the text message from the Daily Mail reporter. The Wayfarer parties knowingly made misrepresentations in their filings and in the press, including concerning their purported receipts against Miss Sloan and her purported connection to Harvey Weinstein, solely to inflame the public and inflict harm. The Wayfarer parties have zero evidentiary support for their factual allegations, and strikingly, the Wayfarer parties have still not provided explanation for their conduct or expressed any contrition for wasting the Sloan party's time and money on this case. Under these circumstances, the court is well within discretion to sanction the Wayfarer parties, and the Sloan parties respectfully request that the court hold that the Sloan parties are entitled to attorney's fees and costs. Sorry, bro, you're all screwed. We know how this judge rolls. Congratulations, Leslie Sloan. Expect your attorney's fees to be covered, right? Thoughts? Let's discuss everything in the comments section.